Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about why training for hypertrophy is not that complicated. It's not. And anyone who tells you that it is probably trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you a book, they're trying to sell you something else. And I want to state up front that when people come to me though and say, well, I only care about hypertrophy, well, I don't respect you. I don't respect you because this is a strength and fitness channel. I care about performance. Now, does hypertrophy matter for those of us who care about performance? Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. It is critical. It is critical for maximizing our performance. But it's not complicated. And that's the thing that gets frustrating when you see all these debates and discussions by the different talking heads who they want to debate some of the science and data. And if you notice, their followers are the ones who struggle to gain size the most. And it's because people take something that is really simple, that tons of people with below average IQs seem to be able to successfully do pretty regularly. Go look at meatheads in the gym. How many stupid meatheads do you know who still get jacked? A lot. So if you're not able to reach their level of jactitude, and you're overanalyzing this, it might be time for you to step back and say, maybe I should just work harder. Because you're probably lazy and just looking for a shortcut. And I'm being honest when I say that. That's generally the case. That's been my experience. Because when it comes to hypertrophy training, paralysis by analysis will stop your gains completely. Now, should we be analyzing things? Sure. Like if our goal is to squeeze out that last 5% hypertrophy, there's a lot to think about in terms of things like stimulus to fatigue ratios. There's a lot of things to think about in terms of maximum recoverable volume. There's a lot of things to think about regarding joint angles, tendonitis, overuse injuries, joint health. These are things that we need to think about, particularly when we're pushing the bleeding edge. But that's for people who are trying to gain the last 5 or 10% extra muscle growth. Right? When you start saying, I don't know, can I recover from 20 sets a week versus 15? Okay, that's someone who's pursuing that last bit of growth. If you're not growing at all, or at least decently fast, this is the least of your concerns. I can tell you right now that if you're not growing at all, you are not doing enough work, you're not eating enough, or you're not sleeping enough. And for many guys, it's all three. Because let's be realistic here. What's the primary driver of muscle growth? Training volume. And I'll go so far as to say quality volume. I don't mean coming in and doing sets of 10 with your 20 rep max. All right, that's not what I'm talking about. Training volume. And to a lesser extent, training frequency. Now, realistically speaking, if you're picking decent exercises, okay, decent exercises, for your chest, you're doing a bench press and you're actually using scapular retraction going all the way down, maybe briefly pausing on your chest and not letting your delts do all the work by letting the shoulders roll forward, or you're doing weighted dips with a good range of motion. Okay, your chest is going to grow if volume and workload are sufficient. And let's say on top of that, at each end of those sessions, you do 5 sets of tricep extensions, right? So I'll just give you guys a perfect example right there. If you do 5 sets of bench press and 5 sets of dips and 5 sets of tricep extensions, all with proper form twice a week, the only way your chest and triceps will not grow, the only way they will not grow is if you were just completely being lazy on those sets. Okay, and I want to make that very, very clear. Make that very clear. You're not taking those sets within 5 reps of failure. Okay, because if you're doing that type of training volume, how much is that for chest? That's 10 sets for chest. And if you're doing that twice a week, right? If you're doing 10 work sets for a muscle group twice a week, You should be able to make substantial gains on that no matter what your level of experience, if stimulus is appropriate. Now, we could argue about 15 sets, right? We could argue about, could you benefit from that, or a third day per week, right? This is for people who are chasing that last 5%. Not for the people who are chasing the first 80 to 90%. Because I'll be honest there. If you are doing that, let's say you do those 2 exercises, and then you do 5 sets of quality tricep extensions, something like the exercise I was just doing, right? And you do 5 sets of that. Because let's say from a volume perspective, the other 2 lifts only count as half sets for your triceps, because it's a little bit of an indirect mover. They're more chest dominant, right? Deep dips and a paused bench press with scapular retraction are going to use more chest than tricep. They use triceps. They get half a load. So we'll count them as half sets. And a lot of experts count it that way. So then you throw in 5 sets for your triceps. That's now 10 sets for your pecs, 10 sets for your front delts, and 10 sets for your triceps, done twice a week. That hits almost every human being on Earth's minimum effective volume. Even an advanced lifter is going to reach their minimum effective volume off that, unless they are half-assing and being lazy with their work. And that is going to be at nobody's maximum recoverable volume. Again, depending on what we're talking about. I don't care what rep range. I don't care whether we're talking 5s, 10s, 15s. As long as you are getting within a couple reps of failure on all of those I just listed. So you're training reasonably hard. There is no way you are not going to gain muscle in your pecs, front delts, and triceps. So if you are doing that and you're not seeing any growth, you have to step back and ask yourself, are you being lazy? Are you actually training hard? Because I didn't ask you, are you adding weight, are you progressing? Because in that context, progressive overload isn't even required. It will happen by default. In other words, if you can do 185 for a set of 10 on those bench presses, and you're getting close to failure, if you're growing, your 10 rep max will go up by default. So 185 will no longer be 1 rep from failure. It will turn into 2 reps, 3 reps, 4 reps, and eventually 5 reps from failure. Then you'll stop growing. But that's because you're now being lazy. You will have to increase the weight to compensate for the muscle growth because your 10 rep max is going to go up. You don't even need programming to make gains off of that. You just have to get close to failure inside those volumes. Now, I will note that for some people, we would want to raise the volumes to get more growth. That's true. But anybody would make some gains off of that. Everybody. So if you aren't, you're being lazy. There's a problem. So let's address that. Let's say you aren't being lazy. You are pushing them really hard. And you're not getting overuse injuries of any type, right? There's not an issue there. All right, let's go over to the next point. Are you eating enough? Are you eating enough? Well, that'd be the next thing. If you're not feeding your muscle tissue, you're not growing. Is it because you're so focused upon maintaining your razor sharp diamond abdominals that can cut glass year round that you're not eating enough to gain muscle? It could be. In that case, though, you now have an eating disorder that's preventing you from gaining. People say, well, what do you mean? Because if you state that your goal is to gain muscle, okay, that means that you now have a goal that's important to you. But your body image issue is preventing you from doing what you have set out to do. That is now an eating disorder or a body image disorder at that point, because it has now prevented you from achieving an important goal to you. We now have a psychological problem, right? If your obsession with your diamond sharp abs that can cut glass prevent you from eating enough food to gain muscle, which is something you claim is an important goal, you now have a mental illness. Because your body image is preventing you from reaching an important goal, and it's now having a negative impact on your life. Okay, you need to see a therapist at that point. Okay. The only other possibilities after this are now stress management and sleep. Because what do we need? What is it that determines muscle growth? It's stimulus, adequate training stimulus, adequate fuel to build the tissue and to fuel recovery, then obviously rest recovery. So you don't have your fatigue management on point and other aspects of your non-training life, or you're not sleeping enough. Because that's it. That really is how simple training for hypertrophy is. It doesn't require periodization. It doesn't require advanced programming. It purely requires adequate volume. And I'm talking about maximize. I'm talking about seeing gains, not necessarily getting optimal gains. We're just talking about seeing visible, measurable growth. It requires nothing more than adequate training volume and training stimulus with high enough tension, combined with enough rest, food, and sleep. That's it. That is the only thing that is required to build muscle. I don't care how advanced or how novice you are, to see some gains. So we come back over to the point of why is this so complicated to people? Well, it's because they have paralysis by analysis, or they're lazy, or they're simply not willing to do the things that I just listed for some reason in their life. That's it. It's not complicated. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.